Me know.
I will. Hi, everyone. Oops, I forgot I'm not in gallery. There we go. Now I'm in gallery view. I like the side-to-side thing rather than my big face. Hi, guys. So here I am again with Patrick. We didn't get to finish our conversation, and there's so much more I wanted to learn. So we decided to schedule another time for part two. Unfortunately for both of us, our schedules seem to easily accommodate that right now. So Patrick, take it away, because you have an idea of where you were going.
Yeah, hello again. Yeah, we finished off last time talking about like some of the five rhythm stuff, the conscious dance stuff I was getting into, and like discovering like this, psychic illness of society, but like doubling back a little bit for linearity's sake. I didn't talk as much about like finishing school because when I had decided to return, it wasn't because I genuinely wanted to go back. It was like, this is a means to an end. So I do not recommend having this kind of awakening with such little support while still trying to finish a
Kidding.
degree, especially in the healthcare field. It was, yeah, it was like pulling teeth getting through the rest of school, honestly. Um, like to be paying for an education that has its points of view about how things work, and also at the same time be awakening to like feeling like you're seeing that that's not exactly the case, that they're things are functioning differently, and just like trying to hold that discrepancy and make sense of it, and learn what they want me to learn so I can pass my classes, but also being like, wait, this isn't how it works, and trying to figure out like what it is that I'm like starting to realize, and hopefully being able to like articulate it at least to myself. Um, so yeah, that was like driving me crazy, and if it wasn't for a few teachers and faculty members who like at least saw some of what was going on, and at least like gave me some extra attention and meaningful ways to like keep encouraging me to get through, whether or not that was good or bad, who really knows. But
Right.
I did eventually make it through with like an adjusted schedule, so like beginning to end, between taking time off from school from physical health stuff with Crohn's, and then figuring out the psycho-spiritual stuff. It took me like 8 years for a 4-year degree, but I, I, I did succeed, and I was pretty impressed with myself given
Yeah.
my situation. Yeah, and uh, after that, I did get like a normal person job at a mental health agency in DC.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like super relevant to my interests, but it did not pan out super well for numerous reasons. Like training wasn't the best. It was one of these things where they were just so desperate for people. They didn't have a ton of resources to really do good training, and at that time, I was just still kind of like didn't have enough of a footing in my own life and my own handling on engaging with reality, basically. And so like being super sensitive and kind of porous and not the best boundaries, yeah, it was not it's not the best way to go into like this epicenter of chaos, basically. So I really really liked like the one-on-one time with the clients, but when it came to like documentation, because that's what it was all about, it was like such a hassle. And it I felt this discrepancy of like feeling like I intuitively, because again I'm seeing through the structure that I am being encouraged to, or like forced to use to engage with people, and being like, I think I can intuitively kind of figure out a better way to engage with people. And yeah, like just figuring out that balance was too much of a pain. So that didn't last super long. And yeah, at this point, This would have been also around the time that I got connected with you, Jamie. I had learned already from Megan again of like, oh yeah, breathing is really important. My body hasn't been doing that very well.
Yeah.
And then was working with Dr. Carson a bit, and then he eventually realized, or kind of reaching diminishing returns on how effectively he could treat me, and said go see Jamie, and she can clear out the a lot of this trauma stuff a lot faster. And yeah, by this point, like I had already been exposed to a lot of these like very new and radical like spiritual ideas.
Right.
And trying to make sense of it was still another story, but it was a lot of things that like intellectually I didn't fully get it, but like it still resonated with me. There's still some truth that was there, and I'm just like, okay, like I guess I get like the oneness thing, that you and I are actually the same thing, that we're all the same thing. And just starting to get a taste of like the profound interconnectedness of everything. And so many other, there's so many rabbit holes in the space. It's amazing. But yeah, like working with you, and I remember like past life trauma was the first time that came up in such a like palpable way. And just the amount of stuff that was like actually able to be cleared, yeah, was amazing. And also this was like
it's like a couple
spring,
years ago, right?
yeah, spring 2017.
Yeah. Okay.
And at the start of 2017 was actually when I reached out to reconnect with my mom after about a year and a half of basically no contact. I was at a point where I'm like, okay, I think I have done enough work to at least be open to seeing what happens. It felt like at least the next step was to explore that. And that was, yeah, very not easy at first.
Yeah.
Like I sent her an email. It was my first way of reconnecting with her. And for like the next 3 days after that, I got a response, and it was a loving response. She's a lovely person. I knew it was going to be this way because, and it just like, it felt like I got launched into like the inside version of outer space and just kind of floating through space. Like I lost kind of any sense of contact with the ground or the earth, and was just still one of the most like bizarre experiences that I've had of just like, am I gonna reconnect with reality? Like what's going on here? And I like had enough I guess bizarre internal experiences by that point to just kind of ride it out, and it eventually did pass. But I was like, what the heck, this journey is not getting less weird as time goes on.
Right. No, that is true.
Yeah, like when I started out with all this stuff, I was like, okay, I just want to like go to therapy so I can like figure things out, and like be able to finish school and have some friends and have a job, and like go back to like being normal or whatever. But yeah, that the train passed that station like a long time ago and never even almost let me off. Like nope.
You're riding this train forever.
Yeah, so yeah, like a lot more kind of started to open up around that time, and definitely a huge part of it was finishing the school. Like I felt so much relief when I finished all of my obligations. I was like, wow, that was way worse than I realized. That was way more unpleasant than I realized. Yeah, and then yeah, I was still very much in the thick of things, trying to figure out like what I could reasonably do for work, how my internal journey was going, and making sense of how to engage with the world. And it kind of worked out such that I was running out of money and my lease was ending. And I had gotten to a point in my relationship with my mom where it seemed like it was good enough to actually have it be an option for me to move back in with her. So I ended up doing that. And yeah, if you want practice on your spiritual growth, like go move in with your parents.
Right, or even take a vacation.
Yeah, all the time.
Or spend a weekend.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it was great and also extremely difficult at times, but
Yeah.
I was at the point where I'm like, I wasn't satisfied with the relationship I had with my dad when he passed, and was like, well, who knows when I'll have another opportunity like this to give it a try. Like, I have no idea how it's going to go. But yeah, so that ended up working out well enough. And still in the trying to cope with life, figure out what I'm going to do, and ended up taking another job as an assistant for special ed students at like an inner city high school in Baltimore. And again, I like really resonated with part of that, and also was totally unprepared for it.
Yeah.
I still didn't have the boundaries and the wherewithal, and just like, oh my God, it was worse than the mental health agency. There were at least like more staff who were not in the middle of like everything, but just walking through the hallways and just like so much trauma everywhere. It was, yeah, it was unbelievable. I would be totally fried after most days of that. And it was one of those things where when I took the job, my body said no, and I knew it, but I was like, but I need a job. I need money. I like feel like I have to do this. And I ended up getting sick before I even started.
Bummer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my body's trying to get through to me like, hey.
Yeah, this is not the thing.
Yeah. And it was pretty rocky throughout. And then as I am starting to realize, like, okay, I'm pretty sure I need to like actually like quit. I got sick again, and it was just like really getting clear of like, okay, I need to keep figuring these things out for myself. Yeah, and then so around this time was when I connected with my friend healer Stephanie, who
Reiki.
yeah, Reiki, Access Bars. She did sound, and was just like a really good mentor in terms of like, she was the first person I connected with like face to face who had familiarity, if not expertise, in so many of these rabbit holes I was discovering. So it was just like, oh my God, you need.
Thank you. You know the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was that, and also, damn it, you mean there's merit to some of this stuff?
Right.
Still kind of, wrapping my head around all of it. And yeah, I was like finding 5 rhythms at this time, and then this was also when partner dancing also was starting to get to be a deeper experience for me, because I started doing more Brazilian Zouk, which is like physically a closer dance. It's a more intimate dance. And I happened to run across an amazing, incredible instructor who went to dance school for many years in Brazil, and also had a background in tantra massage, and was exploring Brazilian Zouk as like a therapeutic experience with close embrace. Yeah, it is something else. So I started taking more classes and working more with him, and it just opened up so much more depth. Like, I was figuring out, like, in 5 rhythms, like, oh, my second or third class, it finally clicked that when the teacher would call to do partnering, it wasn't necessarily involving physical touch, which as a partner dancer, that was my primary, that's what I thought partnering was.
Right.
So I had to partner with my presence, with just being there with my consciousness.
Mm.
And then when you don't have the physical connection to hide behind, it becomes very clear when you leave the room, when you go off into thinking. And
Right.
it dawned on me like, oh my God, I am never, like, basically it felt like never present with my partners. My body was there, but like I was not there so much of the time. It's like, whoa, I do not want to be doing that.
Mm.
Like it was a huge eye opener. So I started to realize like, oh, there's, you know, just back to being present again, the simplicity of it, even in dancing, improves the experience in so many different dimensions that that's crazy. And
Mm.
yeah, starting to incorporate some of these elements from Tantra, like just being caring, being affectionate, being loving. Like
Mm.
so much of the influence up until that point in my partner dance education was much more kind of competition driven or performance driven. They would talk about like social dancing and stuff too, but it was still more heavily skewed towards that realm of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it felt like bringing a lot more back into balance with the approach. And yeah, I just started having even more deep, intimate healing experiences, more through Brazilian Zouk, like starting to have, you know, hour plus long dances with the same person where you just go into this trance and you go into this other space, and it's, you know, it's so powerful and opening, and can be, yeah, just so healing.
Mm.
Like to the point where I would be like crying after the dance, like driving home or when I got home, just like, wait, you mean I can I can receive this kind of love from someone who maybe I didn't even know really before we had that
Yeah.
dance. We didn't have a real conversation, like we got each other's names maybe, but so I just started, my eyes started opening to all this potential of like, wow, we can, you know, we can turn partner dancing, we can all be healing each other, and it's going to be more fun. It's going to like, the artistic quality is going to go through the roof. Like so many things that we are all after, like this is one of the ways in. um, so uh, yeah, I was learning like all this stuff I was studying about psychology and spirituality and all these different rabbit holes, like through meeting this teacher Guy. He helped me see more directly how to apply it.
Mm.
uh, so it turned my, you know, I would be social dancing like 2 or 3 nights a week, if possible, or more. And, you know, to turn it into something that was already therapeutic and a great hobby, but to have conscious intention behind it, and
Mm-hmm.
get so much more out of it. Like the direct experience for me, I felt like I was able to open up so much more, get into better connection with my body, um, connect more with my partner, more with the music, more with the dance itself. It was just so much more fun, so much richer, and like, you know, I'd be leaving the social dance feeling like I was, you know, a better human, a more empowered human, more connected human. So it just like was so obvious to me, like focus on this, like explore this more.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and then shortly after that, at the new year, I ended up basically getting an invitation from the universe that was a very obvious sign to become an Access Bars practitioner. And that was kind of my first foray into any sort of like, you know, proper training for any sort of modality in the healing arts. And yeah, that was a fantastic experience. And as the training you would give and receive, and I ended up receiving from the instructor due to how some of the numbers worked out,
We,
and had um, yeah, she was very skilled in other areas as well, and ended up doing basically extra clearing for me, and uh, stumbled onto something very surprising to me, that she cleared two entities that
Mhm.
came up, and they were actually entities that came on board from my stem cell transplant, because I had two umbilical cord
Mhm.
uh, units. I
Yeah.
was like, oh wow, yeah, my doctor didn't mention that side effect or that risk.
They have no idea.
Yeah,
They don't
right.
think about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was still a kind of new idea to me, and especially more directly understanding how it might impact things.
Mhm.
And yeah, like getting that done, I was like, oh wow, that is one of the things why I felt like I was having such a struggle getting clarity internally, because it was like there was all this other stuff that wasn't exactly me, that I didn't
Right.
understand wasn't exactly me. So it added so much confusion to all of that. Yeah, so that was great. And then I basically would kind of uh, I started doing access bar sessions, not like as a significant like part of work, but just kind of as I was going along, and figuring more things out. Um, I would do sessions every once in a while.
Mhm. Are these in-person sessions or can they be online?
These are all in person. It's based on the touch.
Got it.
Yeah, and as I was getting into this, there's also like a lot of philosophy, and other kind of intellectual tools, that go in the access consciousness umbrella, that were super useful. They're super big on asking questions, and
Mm.
light and heavy, and they're it was just like a very another very empowering set of tools to be like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but I know I can ask questions, and if I keep asking questions, chances are I'm gonna get somewhere better.
Right.
um yeah, so I've got kind of all these things opening up for me, and I'm like starting to make a bit more sense internally for myself. And um, later that summer, I think, was when I found the book "You Are the Placebo" by Joe
Mhm.
Dispenza, which uh, put into words a lot of what I was, kind of coming into contact with, and it
Mhm.
was the thing that was like, oh, this is what was actually at play as well during my stem cell transplant. Like, I had this amazing double whammy of an amazing like protocol, and like the mindset that would have been basically perfect for it. Like, I realized how much time I was actually spending just like daydreaming and fantasizing about what my new life was going to be like going back to school, like I could play sports if I wanted to, all this other stuff. And like, I remember during my stem cell transplant, I was just so at ease and content. Like, I was
Mhm.
getting great care. I just knew, like I was, um, yeah, it was like the waiting room to my new life. Like, my name was about to be called, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, everything's gonna be great. Um, yeah. What else? Let's see. Yeah, I was still like not super clear on exactly like what I wanted to be doing or what felt right for me to be doing.
Mhm.
It was clear from my last kick in the pants at my last job of like, I'm probably not meant to like have a normal job. I know I much preferred not to work for someone else, or like, I'd like to work for myself. Um, so I would basically be randomly finding work enough to fund my dance travels, because I would still try to go to these like weekend conventions,
Mhm.
like along the East Coast. And yeah, eventually was starting to teach more there because there weren't a lot of other people in the West Coast swing world who were explicitly bringing like consciousness and spirituality and the non-physical side of things
Mm-hmm.
into the picture. And I had started super heavily exploring that in my own social dancing, and then dance became part of my like regular meditation practice. Like some days I didn't want to sit, my body wanted to move. So, spent hundreds of hours just here in my room alone,
Mm-hmm.
music, just going through it, exploring it in so many different ways, using marijuana sometimes to help as another tool, another way to explore, and really like access the medicine in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I started like sharing some of these ideas with people, and it was also kind of starting to break through in the Brazilian Zouk community and spilling over into the West Coast swing community, thanks to the influence of this teacher Guy. And yeah, I started working with some people and having like really good experiences with it. Sometimes it would just be kind of introductory mindfulness sort of stuff applied to your partner dancing. Like, what happens if we bring the energy, bring the attention back to just observing what's going on? What if we pull the energy out of the head and out of planning and out of thinking, and just noticing that like so many things would start to click for them, that they would be like, all right, and then it wouldn't have to be anything like super powerfully deep other than that. And with other people it would be more in the realms of like energy work, energy healing kinds of sessions, or processing emotional stuff as it would come up within the dance.
Mm-hmm.
Or working through things that were blocking people from just enjoying their partner dancing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was going super well. I was having so much fun with it. Just dance as a microcosm of life. Like, you can pretty much work on anything, you can figure out anything, like anything you need to work on will show up in dance, in your movement, in your body, and depending on how you want to bring how you want to relate to it, how you engage with it, you can, it's just such a great modality. And yeah, that was all starting to take off more, getting hired at more events, doing more private sessions, starting, because I still didn't know exactly what to call what I was doing for a while. I still don't have the absolute like favorite name for it, and I've still felt like I've had different breadcrumbs being like, this could go in a number of different directions, because anything from like a therapeutic healing embrace dance sort of experience to a more mindfulness oriented experience, or can do stuff non-physically, and I'm happy to work with like people who aren't dancers or not partner dancers, or people who already are partner dancers, and yeah, it was just one of these things that there was so much depth to it for me, that the way to articulate it in the way that I was like satisfied with, the way that like people would kind of understand if they wanted to work with me on it, wasn't like, still hasn't fully shown up. So I would put out my most accurate description in that moment, and between that and like word of mouth, be working with people. So that was like kind of one bucket, and I would still do some access bars periodically, and I had also picked up some more work doing event production,
Mhm.
like setting up these dance floors and lights and sound systems and stuff. Um, and it ended up being like a pretty fun, nice gig because a lot of the events I wanted to go to dance at, I could also just like work at and do that stuff.
Yeah. Nice.
And yeah, and also like do some teaching while I was there. And um, also doing some like virtual assistant work online for the local Five Rhythms group. And
Mm.
yeah, that was kind of like in terms of like what I do, my work, like that was the more professional side of it. And then, you know, very relevant to this, I have been trying to figure out like what to do with my story, how to tell my story,
Mm.
what I feel like I'm here to share with all of this stuff. Because it was clear to me a while ago that like, you know, I the experiences that I've been through, like just putting this out there will be useful to someone.
Mm.
And yeah, I was when I was meditating last night, it was I guess coming into even more clarity that just like yeah, I would love to be able to use my voice to share my story just as like this guy who's had a lot of experiences and basically ended up doing and getting to places where people would have said, no, you can't do that. You're not supposed to get there.
Right.
You know, my doctors, when I had Crohn's disease, the implicit messaging was, yeah, there's no cure for this. You're going to be on medication for the rest of your life.
Mm.
Same with like the acid reflux stuff. And, you know, those things aren't issues in my life anymore, really. Um, and with you know the kind of part two, the second big ordeal of the psychological, the spiritual stuff. You know, it from one perspective it totally fits of like, oh, I'm like anyone else who had mental illness, but I just kind of never fully bought into that one interpretation of it and was like
Right.
very fortunate to have discovered what you know a spiritual awakening is. And so to have had that space to say no, I'm not going to buy into the point of view, the DSM perspective of I have this thing that's wrong with me, there's a problem with me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just gonna, you know, there's no cure for it. I might be on like medication for the rest of my life, or I might be just like coping for the rest of my
Mm.
life. But like no, there's no real pathology here. If I was in a different culture that recognized um, spirituality more and what an awakening looked like more, instead of you know being met with there's something wrong with you, there's this pathology here, I would have been mentored, I would have been nurtured, and um, had a lot more help in assisting this process to unfold.
Have you
um,
read that book, Spiritual Emergency by Stanislav Grof?
no.
Yeah, he's a guy who specializes in working with people. I think he's dead now. He
Hmm.
specialized with working with people with schizophrenia, and he treated everybody with that diagnosis as someone who's going through spiritual emergency.
Hmm.
He treated them spiritually and with respect, and every single one of them had a complete recovery.
Yep. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember running across some random documentary about I don't remember how many people, but it was someone with schizophrenia who went to essentially work on a farm with some family in Sweden, and the family knew like nothing about schizophrenia. Basically, they just treated them like a human being. They
Right.
incorporated them into the goings-ons of everything, and you know, in not a long amount of time, like the amount they were able to integrate and you know heal or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's really it's crazy making like the the crap around you know around the stuff that we don't have
Mhm.
a better way to talk about it, we're not more open about it. at least in Western culture. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's tough when you go through a really fast awakening without anybody around you that has ever seen that or knows what that is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, fortunately, when most of the awakening that I had a lot of support. I
Mm-hmm.
had, you know, my partner, I had several mentors. I had lots of people who I could say, this is happening. And they'd say, oh, yeah, I remember when that happened to me. Or, oh, maybe you need to check this book out. Or I would find something that was a good resource. But I never really felt like I'm completely alone and there's no one who understands this,
Mm-hmm.
thankfully.
Yeah, and having that support, and it's such a huge difference. And
Yeah, enormous.
yeah, I consider myself super fortunate to have like legitimately survived that, because you
Mm-hmm.
know, a friend of mine didn't, and I know so many other people don't. Uh,
Right.
and you know, from one point of view, I could make the argument that, like, the suicide rate, the mental illness rates of all that are going up, like, these can just be basically misclassified, misidentified spiritual awakenings.
Mm-hmm.
And just, yeah, to think about so many people who are having, struggles with these experiences, and all the potential that is there, that we're just kind of looking at it in the wrong way. Yeah, I felt I was like legitimately concerned numerous times for a while that, like, I might say something to get myself like thrown into a psychiatric hospital. Like,
Right.
yeah. um, it reminds me, can't remember who exactly said it, but I came in contact with whatever it was through my teacher, Paul Levy's work. Something about like the definition of sanity is like knowing what you can say to who and when. But like, there's really,
Yeah. You still feel that way? Because I remember feeling that way for a really long time. And now I will literally say I'll say anything to anyone. I don't care.
yeah. I feel way more at ease about it than I used to.
Yeah.
I have fortunately connected with so many more people who are open-minded and, if not interested, in these spaces already, are like just open and curious.
Yeah.
And yeah, that feels like something I'm still I've still been working on. That, and all these writings that I want to do, I have, hundreds of drafts saved in various places on my computers about so many different topics in spirituality and psychology and, um, current events, and just, humanity's collective awakening. That, yeah, when I think about, like, the work that I want to be doing, like, when I imagine myself just saying whatever, not caring, and speaking my piece, just like the relief, the freedom, the flow I would feel from that. And, at times I'm very much down with the idea, that, maybe part of my purpose here is to just, be the crazy dreamer, because I do believe, like, we are going to succeed in this awakening, whatever you want to call it. Like, I know the other way is possible, and to
Right.
me it's inevitable. And, you know when I feel whole enough, when I am far enough away from feeling that shame or that lack of safety about expressing these ideas, then it's so much easier to just be like, out on the fringes. And, if I can be, uh, the crazy guy out there who's maybe making people think twice of, like, oh, maybe things can be different. Maybe I don't have to stay sick or stay living this way, or maybe I don't have this mental illness, this limitation, for the rest of my life. Maybe there are things I can do. Then, that makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to be really afraid. of whatever, some made up backlash. I mean, some of it had to do with past lives, in which I had experienced a lot of backlash. Other parts of it were more around, being afraid I'd be excluded or rejected or shunned in some way. None of those things have ever happened. I have had, and I've been really speaking my truth now for a good 2 years online, pretty honestly. Before that I was trying, but I wasn't as authentic as I wanted to be. But I have been for quite a while, and nothing has ever happened. One time recently, I had someone warn me that something that I was doing was, potentially going to invite in the devil or something like that.
Wow.
And I just responded and said, I trust my inner wisdom. Thank you. But I trust my inner wisdom,
And if
because
that
I
does
really
happen,
do. I
yeah.
really do. And besides, whatever. And from my perspective, I'm not afraid of the devil.
Right. I was gonna say,
That's not
so
a
if the devil shows up, you dance with the devil.
thing. Or you have a conversation, or you have
Yeah.
an understanding of what this aspect of consciousness is.
Right.
Doesn't mean I'm like, gonna dive into the darkness and become a dark worshiper any more than I'm going to be a light worshiper. There's a
Right.
balance in my spiritual practice. So
Mhm.
interesting. Yeah. We need to see you write a blog.
Yeah. I do have one. I
Oh, right,
actually
you
could.
do. Great.
Yeah.
What's the website? Or what?
So I have two. One I kept about my stem cell transplant,
Okay.
in case there's anyone interested in that,
Yeah.
or anyone who has Crohn's who's looking for options. Let me see if I get this right. It is mypsct.blogspot.com.
Okay.
And then the second one is
Oh,
dementedevolution.com.
yes.
Yeah.
That one I know about. Cool.
Yeah, and that one is I'm still figuring out exactly what I'm doing with that space, but for now it's the
There's some things on
repository. Yeah, it's the repository for the things that I have actually written to completion at this point.
there.
But yeah, my plan is to make that into more of my full actual site. For I'm still in Corona times figuring out like how much of this like online dance facilitation stuff do I want to do. Lately I've been feeling the call to explore more massage and tantra stuff, and yeah, just like putting out any writing that might be of assistance or useful, to anyone else who is out there noticing like, oh, things aren't adding up, things aren't making sense, and starting to just like question and look at things differently.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, if people want to reach out to you and learn anything from you, can they get to you through dementedevolution.com, or is there another easier Facebook, or how would you like people
Yeah.
to reach out?
Yeah, Facebook would be easiest probably. I don't think I have set up a way to get in touch on Demented Evolution yet.
Okay,
Uh,
cool. This is really great.
yeah,
I
thank you
have
so
for
much.
a long time been thinking about, yeah, I grew up with a dance background, danced on
Mhm.
and off my whole life. But all of the dancing that I learned was performance related, as I was young and growing up. And then after college, I got into Latin dancing, which it was social dancing. I didn't do any, well, I did a little bit, but it was mostly social dancing. And it was it was a very strange environment, because
Mhm.
the, the, the people that it attracted were like always looking to get laid.
Yes.
And I was married, so that didn't really vibe with, that we were at a different purposes. um, and so I stopped really for that reason, because it just felt Like I was constantly in conflict with what other people's intentions were, and I was getting tired of explaining that no, I really do have a husband.
Really just here to dance.
I just want to dance. You want to dance? Like, let's have fun.
Yeah.
But I've been doing ecstatic dance for a while, and I don't know, I'm really interested in exploring more dance related, movement related practices.
Yeah, and the different partner dance communities, they all have a different vibe. I haven't done too much in the Latin world, but I have, gotten at least enough of a sense. I don't feel drawn towards it for similar reasons. And yeah, it really varies from dance to dance and even from kind of region to region. But yeah, I would recommend checking out like a fusion dance. They have been pretty much the most open-minded, down for exploring. They understand just like having a good time. The dance doesn't have to mean anything. It can just be whatever experience it is.
Right. I love that. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for our time together. I'm going to post both of them back to back for everyone watching. You can have part 1 and part 2. And I'm looking forward to reading all your thoughts on the blog spot. I know you're not on Facebook a lot, but do you ever share on Facebook your posts when you put them up?
Yeah, I will. I'll post them on both when I do.
Yeah, cool. All right, I'll make sure that you're like pinned so I can keep reading them.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. All right. Well, have a good rest of your day.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.